Hey, what's up? My name is J.M. Chaley and welcome to my channel. This week I want to talk about research, doing your research for writing and getting it right. This is not an area where you want to cut corners. And, we see it every now and then. Maybe you read a book, watch a television show, or watch a movie, and you happen to know a little bit about the topic that whatever the story is about, and you kind of go, wait a minute, that's no. And it ruins it for you. Maybe a little bit. It takes something from it, usually, is what my experience is. I did a video about this, and granted, it's a it's a strong argument, I think, but it doesn't really have the ramifications that I'm warning about here, because I'm talking about Jurassic Park, which is a hugely successful franchise, and the liberties that Michael Crichton took aren't due to a lack of research. It's just more of a terms of ignoring your research and doing whatever the hell you want to, which is ultimately the same result because you get it wrong. But in the case of Jurassic Park, of course, I don't think it adversely affected him all that much. A handful of dinosaur nerds and paleontologists didn't really affect his bottom line. But I'll link the video up here, Getting Research Right, the Jurassic Park edition, whatever the hell I called it. This video is kind of like along the same vein of that, but we're not all Michael Crichton. We can't all get away with not doing our research or ignoring our research if we do it. So, first of all, I don't know why you'd not want to do your research. If you're writing about something that has an element of something you don't know, you have an opportunity to learn about that. I think that's kind of cool, right? Because not only do you want to get it right, but obviously you care enough about this story or the setting or this thing that exists in your story that you're writing about. If you care enough to write about it, then wouldn't you want to learn more about it? If I was writing a story about hyenas, I would obviously care about hyenas. And I would be like, I love hyenas. Hyenas are awesome. I'm writing a book about hyenas. Why would I not want to research hyenas if I love hyenas enough to write a book about them? That's my point. So I don't know why you'd be motivated to not research. It's fun. This really hit me when I was writing The Vampires of 1863 because it was a historical piece. It took place, guess when, in 1863 in the city of Boston. I had to do a lot of research, not just what was going on in Boston in 1863, but the time period in general, what they were wearing, how they heated their homes, how people were making money back then, what kind of transportations were around during 1863. Did you know that they had buses? Not buses like we know them, but they called them buses. And they were these long kind of carriages that were drawn by horses. I didn't know that, but I did after I did my research. My protagonist, Siobhan McQueenie, who we know in the modern day as Lisa Cooper, I had to research, what her dresses were like. She wore a bustle. How do you sit down in a bustle? I had to research that. The city of Boston. I needed a scene where Siobhan was walking along the harbor. Well, if you know anything about Boston, you know that the peninsula of Boston is mostly landfill. It was a lot smaller than it is today. And they filled in the harbor and grew the size of the city. Well, in 1863, the waterfront wasn't here, it was here. And I had to look at old maps of the city to find out which streets actually were against the water. That stuff was very, very cool. Bridges was another thing. I had a scene where she went into Charlestown, and the main part of the north end of the peninsula of Boston that connects to Charlestown across the Charles River, you can only get through bridges. Unless you go down out the peninsula and then all the way around, which would be ridiculous. Why wouldn't you take a bridge? Well, none of the bridges that exist today existed in 1863. So I had to research which bridge connected Charlestown to the peninsula of Boston in 1863. It was the Warren Bridge, by the way, which no longer exists, right? It was torn down in the 1960s. Stuff like this. Now, am I going to have maybe a history buff pick up the Vampires of 1863 and flip through it and go, that's not the name of the street that was in the North End and the maybe. But on the off chance I wanted to get as much right as I possibly could. And I'd advise you to do the same. Don't skimp on research. You never know, especially if you're writing something that people have access to. Like if you were writing something in the medical field, something that takes place in a hospital. Maybe your protagonist is a doctor or something like that. Do your research. You want to get this stuff right, because there's a lot of people in healthcare and they may look at it and go, this isn't right at all. And they may leave you a bad review, DNF your book, or just not read anything else you ever write because they kind of cast you away and you lose your credibility. You don't want that. One of the worst examples of this I saw in a writing group. And it wasn't about skipping research. It was about where they went to do their research. And they were going to ChatGPT and basically asking, whatever question it was, how does nuclear power work, And they were getting kind of like, the Wikipedia, if you bought it on Wish version of the output. Like, you probably would have been better off just to go to Wiki or something like that and Google it there. And he's like, oh, this is great. You just use an AI and you can become an expert in anything because it'll just spew out what you're looking for and there you go. And my reply in this group was, I wouldn't do that, because what you're doing is you're regurgitating what the AI thinks you're asking. And if you don't really understand the subject well enough, you could be getting the wrong information because the AI is really just answering what it thinks you're asking. It's kind of like does anyone have an Echo? I won't say the A name. In case anyone's listening, but the Amazon Echo, which plays music and listens to your commands and stuff like that, right? I don't know how many times I'll say, hey, play this song, and then she'll play some other, playing Rabba-da-booba, whatever, some other song that I didn't say. I'm like, no, I said this. I mean, AI's pretty sophisticated for what it is, but it's not perfect. And you could go in and say, tell me about the War of 1812. And, it could spew out a couple of facts, but it might not include anything that's pertinent to your story. So you could be talking about something that's going on and it might not have anything to do with your story. And your reader might be like, why are you telling me this? What is this? You're just copying, pasting stuff that you think is relevant, but it really isn't. So that was almost, I'm hoping nobody does that because that is really setting yourself up to fail. Using ChatGPT for your research. Yeah, that's dangerous, I think. Absolutely do your honest to God research. Go to a library, read a book on the topic you're thinking of. Even YouTube videos. Man, I watched YouTube videos by women that created period dresses and saw all the different layers and stuff, and just to get an idea of. I actually watched a YouTube video on how a woman would sit when she's wearing a bustle. I suppose I could have read it somewhere, but I found a video and actually watched her do it, which was huge. ChatGPT isn't going to show me that or tell me that or explain it to me that well. You got to do your own research, and then don't ignore it. So don't skimp on research. Go the whole hog, and don't rely on, fallible sources. That's my advice. And speaking of the Vampires of 1863, I talked about that a little bit on this video. The novelization, I should say the novellaization, because it's only 40,000 words, 182 pages. well, let's just call it the print version. The ebook version comes out June 3rd. I'm so excited for this. This is the prequel to The Unlife of Lisa Cooper, which follows her in the year 1863 when she's only a vampire of 3 years old. And she stumbles upon a murder which thrusts her into this deadly conflict between vampires and fae for the control of the city of Boston. Wrong place, wrong time, but she's thrust into this arena where there's a lot more powerful opponents and adversaries that she has to deal with, and she's got to survive it all. So, put that on your TBR, I hope. And thank you for watching. If you like this video, please give it a like. And as always, please subscribe. I post most Thursday. And please follow me on social media. I love to interact with folks who watch my videos or read my books. I'd love to hear from you. All the links to the social media platforms that I am on are in the description. I'm on most of them. And yes, thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time.